What is up, everybody? MMA Professor here to do another video. I waited a while to do my Affliction predictions because I generally wait a little out a week ahead of time, maybe a little, maybe 10 days or so, because of stuff like this. Not exactly like this, but fights are canceled because of injuries and stuff like that. I woke up this morning and Affliction 3 is canceled. Completely blown away by that. It's completely ridiculous. I did not see this one coming, so right into it. Obviously, Josh Barnett getting busted for steroids in a pre-fight drug screen. Affliction states that they're looking for, a suitable replacement for it. For the main event against Fedor Emelianenko. Now the rest of this card, I was looking forward to a lot. You had Belfort against Santiago, Musasi against Babalu. Okay, so it was a good main card to begin with. So I was really looking forward to it. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that I would say this is probably about 50% Josh Barnett's fault, 50% Affliction's fault for the event being canceled. Obviously, this whole thing is brought to light that Affliction's talent pool was incredibly thin, which we did know because that's why they only could put on one show a year. So as soon as Josh got hurt, now Affliction and Tom Atencio is saying that they're, because they couldn't find a suitable replacement for main event. Now, I'm not hating on Josh Barnett, but he cannot be that incredibly big of a draw that you would need to cancel your whole event because, because he tests positive and you can't find a suitable replacement. I would like to think that Fedor, with the last two Affliction shows here, was becoming more popular in mainstream MMA, considering everybody talks about him being the king of MMA, the king of the heavyweight division. So he was your draw, and I think no matter who you put him in there with, then there was talks of Vitor, Belfort, and, while I think that matchup is something that I did not want to see, because I thought that would ruin the, two fights. One, the main event, obviously was already ruined, but then his fight with Santiago I was really looking forward to because, Belfort's finally starting to be relevant again in a division, and a division that I think he was more suited to. But, putting Belfort in there was better than I think any of the other choices that they had. Jeff Monson, Bobby Lashley, King Mo. I mean, if you go down those and look at them all, I mean, it's just ridiculous. Bobby Lashley only has 4 fights in MMA. King Mo only has 4 fights in MMA. There's no way Jeff Monson's a draw at all. Belfort's a way bigger draw than Jeff Monson. I'm not even going to get into the rest of them because they're just all silly. That would have been the best one, and actually I would have given Belfort more than a puncher's chance in that. But anyways, I digress on that. Now, I will say, thank God for the UFC. And here's why. My phone's ringing, but I don't care. Here's why. Because the UFC brings one thing that is essentially important to all MMA in general, and all MMA organizations essentially are riding the popularity wave of the UFC. It's stability. Now, a lot of fighters and a lot of people like to bash the UFC on how they don't pay their fighters, they can get caught after, 2 losses or whatever, but at least they get the chance to prove themselves and get some wins, At least they sign, 2, 3, 4 fight deals where they're guaranteed to have something like this not happen. The UFC events are going to take place, and they have, and it happens all the time, especially in MMA. There's a lot of injuries, and they have the talent pool to keep those fights alive, and that's the other thing too. You can, if somebody gets hurt and you're not scheduled, you can step up on short notice. And there you go. There's another payday. It's better for the fighters to have that kind of stability than to not know you're going to get paid for that much. And people want to talk about the UFC, but how about Affliction? They have fighters in their roster looking forward to this fight, and now all of a sudden they cancel it. They better at least get like a show bonus or something like that. Listen, the UFC should not and will not cater to one fighter's needs and wants. Okay, now whether it's Fedor or Fedor's managers, they simply cannot afford to do that. And I'm not talking money wise. I'm talking logistically. They can't give in to one fighter's demands and then tell everybody else, tough luck, this is the way things are. They have to, if they're going to run a successful business, they have to say, this is where it is, and that's all. Like, we can't allow you to do these things that we're not allowing everybody else to do. Is it essential that Fedor goes to the UFC? No, and I don't think he will, just because of those reasons. M1, Fedor's managers, want to be a part and co-promote with everybody, that every event that Fedor is in, which the UFC clearly is not willing to do. Now, Fedor is, there's nobody aside from Josh Barnett. Now who's he going to fight, right? Like, even if this event was successful, and Fedor wins, which was not a guarantee, but an overwhelming possibility, who are they going to get? If there is an Affliction 4, who's he going to fight? So, I mean, there are options like Alistair Overeem and stuff like that fight for Strikeforce, Verdum, but the heavyweight pool in MMA period is not that deep, and people want to say that the UFC's heavyweight division is crappy. Maybe so, but it's on paper better than anybody else's by like 10 times. So while I think the UFC doesn't need Fedor, does Fedor need the UFC? I think his legitimacy as a heavyweight is starting, like, he's still the number one heavyweight, clearly. I mean, you have to lose before you lose that ranking, but I just think it would better suit Fedor. I mean, he's at the end of his career anyway. Well, is he at the end? He's going to be 34, so realistically, he should try to fight, the toughest fights he can, make some. Obviously, the UFC, the money was never the issue. It was, the co-promoting that they wanted to do, and Fedor. Look, MLB, NFL, they have exclusive contracts like that too, where you can't just go play for another league or like do dangerous stuff like, I want to I want to go drag racing it's not plausible. It's not plausible, and so, that's what I think there. Now, if this is Affliction's last show or attempt at a last show, which they claim is not, that they're going to promote in the future, there's some guys that I could say that the UFC should pick up. If, I want these other promotions to exceed so it gets the UFC up, or if eventually you'd want the UFC to be like the other mainstream sports where there's the NFL, one league, okay? One organization, the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so on down the line. Will UFC be, not just a brand, but that'll be the organization, and then everybody else, you're always going to have, NFL has arena leagues and the CFL, and MLB has all the minor league affiliates and stuff like that. How do you want it to be? I think right now it's too young in the sports, history to make that kind of decision. How you want it to be. I think things in the end will play out for the better, and no matter which way it goes, MMA will continue to grow. And then in the end, that's what we all want. So, it's sad that, Affliction, they get backed by Golden Boy and Donald Trump, and they're still not able to pull off what the UFC can. It's kind of weird and funny at the same time. Now, here's something that I'll leave you with. Apparently, and it's unsubstantiated rumors so far, but Affliction, before this event, went out and got a huge insurance policy from Lloyd's of London in case of a main event disaster, like somebody testing positive or an injury, that they're going to make all their money back and break even on this, because they already spent a lot of money on promotion and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird if that's actually the case, and that might be why they ended up, saying cancel this instead of losing money. But let me guys know what you think. I'll do UFC 101 predictions pretty soon and some Strikeforce predictions. So you guys stay metal. Later.